The last chapter we're going to cover is just the beginning, sort of chapter 17. And what we're really going to be focusing on in 17 is attraction and makes us more attracted to one individual than the other, as far as getting to know them sort of socially. But this chapter really is looking at prosocial and antisocial behavior as an overall. So let's start with the experiment they talk about at the beginning of the chapter, which is the shock shop, or the shocking experiment. And it was a very simple experiment. What they did was they had a group of college students who had agreed to participate in an upcoming experiment. They didn't exactly know what the experiment was about, but they had agreed to participate. When the students arrived, they explained to them that they were running a little bit behind right now. They were about 20-30 minutes behind as far as their time was concerned, and that they would still like them to participate. And they explained that what this experiment was going to do is be giving them a series of small shocks and would be recording their physiological reactions to these shocks. But because they were delayed a little bit, they did want to tell them that, we have this waiting room over here. It's got some water and stuff, and other people who are going to be participating in the experiment are waiting in that same room. Or if you'd like to, you could, go down the hallway and go ahead and sign up for some courses or talk to an academic advisor. The students had a choice of either place to wait. They could either wait with other people who were going to be going through the same experiment or who might have already gone through the experiment. The students didn't know, but they were participating in this experiment about being shocked, or they could go down and talk to this counselor. The question that we wanted to know is, which would the students do? Would they be more likely to hang out with people who are about to go through the same experience as them, or wander down and talk to this counselor? And most students chose to go and be in the same experiment as they were. So what this showed was that people would prefer to hang out with people going through a similar experience. And if you think about it, if I talked to you and I asked you, most of you would probably say, yeah, we'd want to go hang out with these other people because you'd like to know what's going on. I mean, I'm about to get a series of shocks and nobody told me anything. What this kind of again shows that we've been talking about since the beginning of this course is that we are social animals and that we prefer to hang out with other people rather than be by ourselves. So what we're really talking about is interpersonal attraction. And the question then comes is how do we pick the person that we feel like hanging with? Now, don't automatically go to a romantic relationship when we talk about attraction. We'd have to say sexual attraction if we're talking about that specifically. But even people like your friends, you are attracted to them. For some reason, they seem more interesting to you than other people. So the first key thing is physical proximity. Basically, we need to be near you to get to know you. And if you think about this, this makes sense. I'm not going to call someone in Washington State, pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hi, would you like to be my friend?" They're probably going to hang up on me. They don't know who I am. I'm nowhere near them. They don't see me. This is some weird person on the phone. So how do we find our friends? Well, they tend to be people who we work with. They tend to be people we are interacting with in some physical location. Now, every once in a while I get somebody who says, well, I make my friends on the internet and I'm not physically with them. But you are in a way because you both had to be on the computer at the same time. You both had to be in the same website or web room at the same time. Because if you weren't, you would never have met. So I like to play backgammon. Kind of hard to play that by yourself, which means that I've gone online and I found a backgammon location that I enjoy, and I log on at sort of a certain time of the day to play backgammon. There'll have to be other people who are logging on at that time for me to play backgammon with, and I have to be able to chat with them. And after a while, you get to know the people you enjoy playing with, and you keep going back and playing with them. So I still have a physical proximity in a way to that person being at the same place at the same time. And because we are there, that begins to create that familiarity that we need to develop a friendship. The second thing is that we tend to be attracted to people who have similar in our background, ages, interests, attitudes, beliefs. But one of the things that we do find is that they need to basically have the same beliefs as us. This is the key to attraction. Basically, if we think about it, how well are you going to be attracted to somebody who has totally different values and beliefs than you? Probably not too much, because your values and your beliefs tend to make up the type of person you are. And when you have somebody who's the total opposite of you, you're going to find that that's a very difficult person for you to hang with because you're going to be annoyed at them for too much. So that's what we do to find. Now, when we talk about backgrounds and ages and interests, what we're talking about here is more of our general interests. So let's say I do find somebody who has the same values and beliefs as me, but they are much more of an outdoors person. My version of outdoors is watching outdoor shows in front of my nice big air conditioned house with my nice big TV. I love outdoors when I'm watching it that way, but I don't like being outdoors. I don't like the mosquitoes. I don't like the heat. I don't like to sweat. So it's probably going to be hard for me to be really good friends with somebody who's a big outdoors person because they're always going to be outside, or I'm going to be inside going, woohoo, more power to you. So when we talk about interest, we're talking about somebody who probably shares some interests like you, but they probably are not exact. They're going to be a little bit different than you. The primary reason they're going to be a little bit different than you is that we do enjoy having some differences. They always say opposites attract. Well, when we talk about opposites, we may be talking about quiet versus talkative. We may be talking about more outgoing, being a little bit more reserved. But they probably still have the same interests and values. As far as backgrounds are concerned, don't talk about social economic backgrounds. We really talk more about beliefs and value systems. One of the things that is true is that physical attractiveness tends to make people more attractive to want to get to know. We do know that people who are physically more attractive tend to get better paying jobs. They tend to have more long-term friendships. They tend to find that they have more successful jobs. We may not like that, but that is the truth. What this is called is the halo effect. And that's a tendency to give us this general kindness we associate with physical attractiveness. Now, the halo effect also works not just with physical attractiveness, but with the other things we may find to be attractive. So let's say I look at the newspaper and I see some woman named Sally Joe yesterday jumped in and saved a seeing eye dog. Now Sally Joe is coming in to have a job interview with me today. I'm going to find her attractive. I'm going to find that she's probably a good person. At least that's what I'm going to think because she did such a brave act by saving this dog and jumping in this really polluted river and doing all that good stuff. So when she comes in for the job interview, I already have a positive attitude toward her, and that's going to help her throughout the entire interview. This is one of the reasons why I get so fussy about your cover pages. We want your cover pages, at least I want your cover pages to be as perfect as possible when you hand them in so that your instructor already has a positive attitude toward your paper. If you think about it, if your cover page isn't right, wouldn't you wonder what else is wrong with the paper? If they couldn't even get the cover page right, what else did they get wrong? So you don't want an instructor to have that. You want them to have this positive feeling about your paper. So get the first page right so that they don't look for other things. Now, while there is the halo effect that your book talks about, there is also something called the horn effect. And the horn effect is basically the opposite. Let's say that I did read about Sally Sue jumping in and saving this wonderful animal who's a seeing eye dog, but then she charges the guy $100 to get the animal back. Now I think of her as being kind of, I don't know, greedy. And so she comes in for the interview at my job today, and I already have sort of a negative attitude toward her. After all, who would charge this poor blind person to get their seeing eye dog back? And so no matter what she says, I already have a negative attitude toward her. So the halo and the horn effect can both affect how individuals react when they first meet somebody. And I am talking about first meeting somebody. By the way, this may be very biological in our nature when it comes to physical attractiveness. We know we have taken babies and put them in these special little cribs where they have these pictures above them. And one may be a very physically attractive picture, and maybe somebody who is not so physically attractive. And the baby will tend to turn away from the less attractive person and turn toward the attractive person and look at them. Now, I do have to say, when I say physically attractive, we're not talking about drop dead, knockout, gorgeous. We're talking about just being attractive. We are talking about having two eyes in the right place, having a nose in the right place, having a mouth in the right place, having ears that are in the right place. Those tend to be what we call physical attractiveness. When we have people with large scars or eyes and ears and noses that may not be symmetrical in nature, those tend to become less physically attractive. And that's what we found with the babies, is that the more symmetrical a face was, the more attractive a face was. Reciprocity is the next thing that we look for. And basically what we're saying is that we tend to be attracted to people who have some sort of interaction with us. Now, the interactions can be thoughts or feelings or objects, but if we're not interacting with them, if there's not something that we can socially exchange with them, then there's probably a good chance that we're not going to keep a friendship or even start a friendship with that person. So it doesn't matter if it's, two coworkers talking about a project, we got something to talk about there, or two kids, talking about trading cards. There's something that we can interact with as far as what we want to know. And in that interaction, to become acquainted, we need to have some self-disclosure. Now, the big thing with self-disclosure is that we can't over-disclose too soon. If we over-disclose, we're probably going to actually be pushing people away. And so what we have to have is this careful tit for tat. I tell you a little bit, you tell me a little bit. I tell you a little bit, you tell me a little bit more. If I tell you too much, you run away. So we do need to have some interaction. We need to have some give and take, you might want to say, for any kind of acquaintance to even begin. Now, what is interesting is that gender, male or female, does look for something different. Now, this is North American culture. It may be different in other cultures, but in North American cultures, our guys will tend to look for friends who they can have similar activities with. We say friendly competition is sort of the concept for them. They like to be able to get out, do something competitive, somewhat competitive with them, but then afterwards still be able to have a beer with them. So whether it's playing a game of poker or playing a game of basketball, they can go at each other crazy, and then afterwards they can be friends like anything and have a drink and good game. Now, you're not going to find women do that. If I'm going to be fighting with you on the basketball court, I'm going to be fighting with you off the basketball court. We tend to find competition as something that is continuous. There isn't just a time to be and not to be competitive. Women, we tend to be looking for someone that we can share our feelings and confidences with. We seem to be wanting to find individuals that will help us through life, you might want to say. And as such, that is what we look for. So it's a little bit different for men and women. And you might think about this when you're talking to your husbands and your wives. Now, the last kind of big thing that we talk about in this chapter is the social exchange theory. So the question is, why is it that we stay in some friendships? And why do some friendships stay and then fade and other ones keep going? So one of the things I always talk about is sort of like our high school friends. Our high school friends, we're really friends with them. We're very close to them. But what social exchange theory will basically tell us is that we will stay in this relationship as long as we are getting something out of it. We don't even realize that we're doing this as sort of unawareness, but what are the rewards versus the costs for this friendship? Now, in high school, we didn't have to put much into it. We were there every day. We were doing what we needed to do to be in school. And at the same time, we're seeing our friends on a daily basis. Once we get out of high school and we start getting into our own jobs and we're moving other places, it's going to cost us a lot to be able to maintain those friendships. And the question is, am I going to get enough out of that in order to maintain the friendship? Meaning is if my friend moves to, I don't know, St. Petersburg, am I going to be able to willing to put in the effort to drive and talk and see them to maintain the level of friendship we had in high school? And for most of you, no, you're not going to maintain that same level. Slowly over time, what's going to happen is that your life is going to get very busy, their life's going to get very busy, and you just don't have the energy to put into that relationship. Not only that, but you may be drifting off in different directions. So it's one reason why we tend to lose these really good high school buddies. Now we'll get back together with them once in a while. We'll have coffee with them. We'll talk with them. And it will be like, old times because we never really lost the friendship. We just lost sort of the social exchange parts of the friendship. What is interesting is that you may keep the friends you make in college, though, throughout your life. Research sort of says that this is because you're going to be mostly traveling down the same path together. You tend to be in the same career fields together. You'll tend to be working in the same sort of jobs together, and that there's a good chance that you'll have a better opportunity to keep those social rewards and costs going. Even if you work at two different offices, you might meet up for lunch more often because your offices may be close enough to do that. There's also a good chance that you're going to be at the same life point in your life, meaning is that you're going to be both starting your careers at the same time, so you're going to be sort of at the same social status. Lastly, the thing that we do is we do look at what we call comparison levels, and that is we look at the standards we use to reward and the cost of this exchange. So, am I feel like I'm putting in as much as you're putting in? If I begin to feel like I'm putting in more than you or less than you, then we may also find that we back down or reduce the amount of exchange that we're going to have. But no matter what, there has to be an exchange in order for a friendship to continue or an acquaintanceship to even begin to build. As I said, this is a very short chapter. We're not going to do a whole lot in this. This is just a little touch upon this, and I will see you in class.